Before we begin today's video, a shout out to Final Fantasy Piano Music for providing the arrangement we used. Be sure to check out their other piano arrangements via the link in the description. The excitement around E3 seems to be getting greater and greater with each passing year, as developers, publishers and technology companies are so desperate to try and figure out how exactly they can get maximum focus on their upcoming games. Last year, there were around 162 games featured at the show, but with Sony choosing not to host a press conference for the first time in what feels like forever, it's thrown the cat amongst the pigeons. They have been sporadically releasing trailers and announcements for their own games, like the release date for the hugely anticipated Death Stranding, but it could have also affected others too. Google, for example, hosted a conference for their Stadia console on the 6th of June, way before E3 officially starts, and Final Fantasy XV actually featured during that conference. But with everything a bit all over the place, it could have been what led Square Enix to release their teaser trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, well ahead of when the travelling circus comes to town. In terms of Final Fantasy though, and E3, the main questions are, what is there to look forward to this year, and then where will we see it? And to answer this question, the best place to start is of course the Final Fantasy VII Remake. As was revealed at the end of the teaser trailer, Square Enix announced that they will be showing off more information in June 2019. And granted, while it is a small leap of faith to assume that this will be happening at E3, with them hosting a concert on the eve of the event, it feels as though this was their not so subtle way of saying that we should expect to see something at E3 2019. And with there being no Sony press conference this time around, it feels like there are two logical places where we should expect to see more. The first is the aforementioned Final Fantasy VII A Symphonic Reunion concert, which is taking place on the 9th of June, a day before the Square Enix press conference. Yoshinori Kitase has been confirmed as a special guest of honour for this concert, and while this could just be for posterity, as he was of course the director of the original game, Tetsuya Nomura, who's of course the director of the remake, has also been known to use concerts that happen on the eve of E3 as a place to reveal information about his upcoming games. For example, last year during the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra World Tour concert that took place just prior to E3, they announced the release date for Kingdom Hearts 3, before then revealing much more information during the Microsoft and Sony press conferences respectively. The second place where we are likely to see information therefore becomes the Square Enix press conference itself, which, as I mentioned, is scheduled to take place the day after the concert on Monday the 10th of June at 6 PM Pacific time, or 9 PM on the East Coast and 2 AM for us here in the UK. In terms of what they will show here, well, there's been little indication thus far about what exactly they will be showing off, as Square Enix has just teased that they will showcase another exciting lineup of titles during the conference. But being ever optimistic, the hope is that it will be a repeat of the fantastic E3 2015 conference, as opposed to the rather dismal E3 2018 conference. Bringing things back to the 7 Remake, they've not given any real specifics, but given the focus of the teaser trailer, there does seem to be a strong hint that Tifa Lockhart will be shown off in some capacity. This could just be confirmation of her new visual design with an appearance in a small cutscene, but as they did with Aerith in the teaser trailer, we could also get to see a brief look at her gameplay mechanics and also hear her voice acting. It could also be great to see some of the other characters too, but as they seem to be drip feeding information out at this point, it may be more likely that these will be saved up for future events such as Gamescom and the Tokyo Game Show. Gameplay is another aspect that everyone is dying to know about, and if what they showed off before was indeed a teaser trailer, there's every reason to expect that for E3, whatever they show will be way more comprehensive. With Kitase in attendance at the concert, and Nomura also hopefully in tow, there's also a good chance interviews will be conducted. So this will provide another avenue for us to learn about more nuanced pieces of information about the remake. And who knows, if we're lucky, they may even share a release date or a release window. Next on our list is Final Fantasy XIV, specifically the Shadowbringers expansion. Square Enix announced via the Lodestone blog at the end of May that they will be bringing Final Fantasy XIV to E3 in a pretty big way. There will be a huge presence on the show floor with 40 kiosks set up at the Square Enix booth, where attendees will have the chance to check out the 2 new jobs and battle against Titania to try and win a cool new t-shirt. Not only that, but Yoshida will be hosting another Letter from the Producer live. But as Square Enix Presents won't be happening this year, it will be recorded from the Square Enix Los Angeles offices instead, as opposed to the LA Convention Center. This will take place on the 14th of June at 3 PM Pacific Time and 6 PM Eastern. Within this update, they will be talking about patch 5.0 while also providing some miscellaneous announcements. At present, these are the only 2 confirmed games appearing, but there are still some potentials out there, and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remaster really stands out in this regard. This was announced last September, and we've heard next to nothing since, so it would make sense for Square Enix to remind gamers that this game is supposed to be coming out within the next 6 months. We may also get to learn a bit more about changes they're making, as again, they've been very limited on this front, aside from it being announced that it will be a digital-only title in North America and potentially Europe too. Dissidia NT is another curious candidate for an appearance, mainly due to how Square Enix could use it to help increase anticipation around the 7 remake, if they're smart. The last character, Xenos, was announced back in March, and they often like to keep a 2 to 3 month cycle between announcements. It's been heavily rumoured that Tifa Lockhart will be within Season Pass 2, and Zack Fair is another candidate that the developers have spoken about rather fondly. So if they were to showcase either of them within the Final Fantasy VII Remake presentation, they could have a nice bolt-on at the end, announcing that one of these 2 characters would be appearing in Dissidia NT. It would be the perfect marketing tie-in, as people could play one of these characters as the hype for the Final Fantasy VII Remake builds. But on the flip side, this is Square Enix we're talking about, and last year they only featured Dissidia NT because the Japanese announcements happened to align with E3 via Square Enix Presents. With that not happening this year, it may end up just being a missed opportunity, but we'll see. While we're on the subject of Square Enix Presents though, in past years, Square Enix North America has used this livestream as an opportunity to give loads of exposure to their mobile games, specifically Brave Exvius, Mobius, and Opera Omnia. But with the live show now not taking place, these games are unlikely to appear at E3 in any big way, if at all. Now, it was at this point last year where we ran through some rather outlandish predictions we had, and while we could do the same this year, as there are plenty of rumours circulating around about Final Fantasy XVI, it just doesn't feel as though now is the right time for Square Enix to say anything in that regard. With the Final Fantasy VII Remake starting to really amp up, it feels like the last thing they need will be for something to encroach on that. But then again, they did announce the Final Fantasy VII Remake right when things were starting to ramp up around Final Fantasy XV's release, so it's difficult to see how Square Enix will choose to play it. Last year, they did announce a few new games such as Babylon's Fall and the critically acclaimed Quiet Man, and you'd like to think they wouldn't want to make that mistake again. But if they are going to announce anything, I feel as though it needs to be big, but it's likely that slot will be filled by Western titles as opposed to Japanese titles, as there just seems to be a lot of change happening over there, what with plenty of senior figures leaving, and Studio Estolia even being shut down following the cancellation of Project Prelude Rune. We know that the hugely anticipated Avengers game is going to be shown, and based on some information that was published by accident on the official E3 Coliseum website, we know that Square Enix will be showing off gameplay for that specific title following its worldwide reveal. Last week, Square Enix also announced that they would be publishing the first-person zombie sequel Dying Light 2, and again, that they will be showing off more about the game during their live event on the 10th of June, and not too long ago they also revealed another new game called Outriders that's being looked after by Square Enix Europe and even has its own Discord channel to help with its marketing push. So it seems like there's going to be a much heavier Western focus this year, but it means at a minimum we're going to have 4 or 5 games featured within the press conference, but expect there to be more. Last year they featured 9 different games during their rather drab conference, 6 of which were from Square Enix Japan, and as they've taken Sony's slot this year and did such a bad job last year, the spotlight is going to very much be on them as a company. But now that you've heard our thoughts, what are you expecting for them to show at this year's E3? Do you think we will indeed get a huge blowout of information about the 7 remake, with character reveals, a full-on look at gameplay and loads of other details showcased? Do you think we'll get to see some new games from Square Enix Japan, or do you think it's going to be relatively low-key? As always, let us know in the comments below, and of course, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you also subscribe to our channel. With E3 2019 now very, very close, we're hoping to pump out content much, much faster than we normally do, as there's a significant expectation on our side that it's going to be a rather busy show for Square Enix Japan, even if that only relates to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Alright guys, this is Daryl signing out. A big thank you once again to all our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, and of course a big thank you to everyone watching this video. Roll on E3, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.